Watch this video with our virtual reality glasses for smartphone. virtualvisor.com.
So I guess what I'm excited about is I don't know, just the power of it. I mean, there's no other platform. It's obviously a brand new storytelling platform. People mistakenly can compare a VR to, you know, what about 3D, that didn't work or whatever. They're wrong. It's a totally new platform, just not just another way to look at existing content. It's a whole new way to tell stories. So obviously, and everybody's going to say that, you know, things which are similar, but ultimately the power to affect people to their very core, irrespective of what genre you're making something in. Horror is obviously very potent because it's so visceral, but there are a ton of other genres and other kind of experiences, games, live action, pretty much anything that you can do, and just the power of it is really exciting to us. And we're about to announce a couple more games that are based on very large IP and another about 20 hours of live action content that we're financing and producing that we're really excited about. Very genres, of very experiences, all monetizable. We're monetizing VR. We're not really working with brands. We're not doing anything of that nature. We're looking to create content, distribute it to the marketplace, a controlled part of the pipeline. We're in partnership, obviously, with all the usual suspects, whether it's the Sony PlayStation or HTC Vive or with Oculus or with anybody else. But for us, it's about creating very premium content and monetizing it across all platforms.
Good. Yeah, I mean, most of all, I'm so excited with the advancements in both the production and post-production workflow. The Social Animal system back in 2007 was incredible, but figure we had 9 SI2K minis tethered to 9 MacBook Pros shooting up into mirrors, and so that meant bringing it into, it was too big of a frame size for Motion, Apple's graphics software. Our frame size was 18,000 by 1080, so we brought it into After Effects and, you know, literally frame by frame stitching through, you know, all those frames. So we could, you know, we flew through the Swiss Alps, we did all sorts of amazing things. We shot an incredible music video for Devo, but jumping ahead 5 years and all the different camera systems and the post workflows are super exciting. So specifically, two examples. One thing, our camera system was cylindrical, so we weren't shooting up. And so when I finally got my chance to basically, okay, we're at Endemol, we're camera agnostic now, so it's great. Right? Gloves are off, I can use whatever I want. So I was very excited to finally shoot up. And, you know, I think there's a lot of great VR experiences, 360 experiences, but I keep looking up and I'm like, there's, you know, no one's doing anything. So I finally got my first chance, and we were doing something for our esports gaming show called Legends of Gaming. And basically we had a video game competition show, and what we did is, for one, is online people really love to watch the gamer, but they love to watch the video game. So we composited the game, so basically the gamers were at the horizon, and then we composited the video game above their heads. So the viewers could choose, do you want to watch the gamer, do you want to watch the game? And then just for sheer fun, we hung the host from the ceiling. So, you know, if I was going to shoot spherical for the first time, I was going to make the most of it. And I'm very excited, we just announced last week, we shot the first bottom to top VR experience of climbing Mount Everest. So we're partnering with Life VR, and it will launch in early 2017, and we have a little teaser. Although it's equirectangular, hopefully this audience understands what that means.
which is really a long time. We've gone through a lot of different trials, and now we've come to the finale.
Devo was my first concert to go to.
Oh, really? Yeah. Mark Mothersbaugh, they have a circular recording studio, so it made it.
That's cool. Like a giant power dome.
Yeah, it worked.
That's cool. So I'm going to show three quick things real quick. First of all, again, we're hired to do content for activations, campaigns, or even release digital content on 360. These are examples of Vive. These are examples of 360 videos. In about a week, if you walk into a Best Buy or an AT&T store, if you put a Samsung headset up to your head, everything you see in that is going to be our content. So it's the new retail that's rolling out for Samsung. We did the American Horror Story, which was at Comic-Con. So we'll create the content that you see in the headsets, but then we're also pretty tied into what's happening around you. So the one thing about the American Horror experience was it was a multiplayer experience, so 5 people at the same time wearing a Vive headset, probably in about a 20 by 20 foot area. The cool thing about that is VR is better when more people are in the space with you. It does enhance the experience. So we're going to show you another video of girls screaming.
It never gets old.
So the reason why they have a sheet on them is because in the experience, you're in a sheet. You've got a sheet over your body. But everybody would end up sticking their headsets underneath it. And then one person starts freaking out, everybody else starts freaking out because you can hear yourself over the headsets or headphones. People just yell, like. So it was a narrative piece, 6 minutes long, but real-time rendered, since it was in the Vive. The next quick piece I want to show you is not that again. We released a feature-length film the same day it was released in theaters as a digital download and on Blu-ray about 2 months ago. It's a zombie movie called Daylight's End. We got the rights from the director to be able to do this. So we released the feature film as a download within a VR environment. And then during the film, you are given weapons and you can basically shoot the zombies that enter the room while you're watching the movie. And just so like, it just works. So there's no major science behind it. And then go ahead and go to the next one, so I'll be conscious of everybody's time. The other thing too now, so we're creating content that we're then licensing to arcades and for sale for consumers. This is Arcade Artist. It just went live on Steam last night. It went live on Viveport about 2 weeks ago. HTC is now using it as part of a campaign. But let's go ahead and click in through that. So it's not all horror. This is more of a family-oriented piece. So we were working on a tilt brush mechanic before tilt brush came out, which we ended up using with McDonald's down at South by Southwest, if anybody was down there. And so basically using that same kind of interaction technique with the painting, but then adding like 10 other new cool things you can do in the space, we created Arcade Artists. And so it's a steampunk Alice in Wonderland inspired playground that is geared towards families. And it's premiering in Dallas tonight at the Aurora Lights and Music Festival. We'll be running 3 days tonight, Friday night and Saturday night. We're trying to run about 8,000 people through multiple units down there at the festival. It's insane.
It's awesome.
Which, in Dallas, it's going to be a 2-minute long experience, but if you buy it, it's pretty much endless. And from that, you're going to be able to share 360 videos through social platforms, Facebook, Twitter. You'll be able to share videos of what you've created as well. So it's a pretty cool thing.
So you're doing a screen capture of the...
Yeah. Of while you're in it. So, doesn't have to all be screams.
Yeah.
But screams rule.
Yeah.
Thanks.
There you go.
That's it.
Thank you.
That's why I'm tired today.
Okay. So you guys are all amazing. It's like it's amazing to see in a year what's happened, how much the stuff has advanced and matured. You know, in spite of everything we spoke about last year, how it's kind of finding its way of doing things. And I'm very different than what these guys are doing. My conference tries to, first of all, I'm self-conscious of the fact that I love all of you guys. I'm sorry that there's all white dudes up here. It's not like a major thing because one of the things about the VR industry and what's happening to me is a major paradigm shift. And so I keep trying to look at it that way and to get people involved in that conversation as much as possible. And when we created the VRTO conference, I thought, what do we do that isn't just going to rehash so many trade shows that are just kind of reskinning themselves to now talk about this upsell that VR may or may not be and talk about the same stuff? And how do we go down deeper into what's really happening here and how this may impact our society and our culture, our economics and people, just people, and how do we kind of keep the ceiling off for as long as possible to really explore the new possibilities of what this can be, and not just the convergence and all that sort of NAB jargon that tends to flatten out this stuff very quickly, I find. So the picture on the left is, it's hard to see, but the people in that picture are Steve Mann, the chief scientist at Meta, Brett Leonard, who created Lawnmower Man, Robin Engel is the head of Engel Insurance International, Anne Serrano runs the Canadian Film Center. We've got Zach Harris, who's a high-level programmer at Ryerson University, and he's talking about machine learning, and Ryan Jansen, who's a PhD and works with a company that is developing cryptocurrencies, and Samantha Matthews from the Venn Agency, who's a strong advocate for web VR and hacking and Janus and sort of open source VR development. And all of those people came together for a town hall meeting and a presentation by Steve Mann that was there to ratify or propose a code of ethics that he would bring to the IEEE, which he is the chair, and propose a sort of code of ethics for humanistic augmentation and look at all the potential problems and challenges and create actionable ideas, right? And I would go around to all of these conferences and cherry pick the hotheads and the people that are trying to shake up the situation and put them together on a panel and just stir the pot. But we learn a lot from doing this, and a lot of people that leave these conferences ended up creating companies together and creating lifelong friendships and so on, because when you really put people in the hopper and you turn up the temperature a lot, you kind of strip away a lot of the veneer and can get into some pretty interesting business. So you know, it was pretty well received, and that was VRTO. So, and FIVARS is in its second year, at the end of its second year now. It's a festival of VR and AR storytelling. And someone said something great yesterday, which is that often storytelling gets confused with narrative. And I think that there's something very interesting about exploring storytelling in an immersive medium. I'll give you an example just to keep it short, but you know, these things called useless spaces, where you've got modders or developers or game designers who will go into Unreal Engine and create like a winter scene, let's say, and it's just mildly animated, and they drop you down in it. And at first you can think, oh, this is like a relaxation thing or something, but then you start to recognize things that are signatures of that artist, and that over a certain amount of time you start to infer things from that environment that tell you something about that person. And because you've got a certain amount of agency there, the sequence in which you deduce those cues form a sort of a story inside of your own head. And for example, that's just a way to tell a story without a protagonist, without characters per se, or without even a timeline. And this was shown in walking simulators like Gone Home, where you just go back home to see your family and everybody's gone missing, and you're this latchkey kid. And the story is told through just clues that you find on the ground. But the interpretation was so diverse between people who went through an experience like that. One person thought the uncle was a serial killer and had murdered the whole family, and somebody else said, no, 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 it's about the sister who ran away with another girl that she fell in love with in the military. And they were both completely valid and led to incredible conversations. So there's something in this to me that's really interesting, where you know we talk about giving the user agency, but at the same time there's a danger of giving them too much control and them not being a good director or an editor or whatever, and having a terrible flat experience. So by kind of stripping this away from the tradition of narrative for real and looking at this as a unique, well, as a self-contained thing that's of its own merit, we may discover something that we never expected. So FIVARS separates itself from things that call themselves VR film festivals or our showcases for neat razzle-dazzle stuff by saying the criteria is that every selection has to introduce some sort of unique mechanic, something we haven't seen before, something that breaks things, and also it is storytelling. The argument is that it's storytelling. It's not pure abstract expressionism. So we do that, and we focus a lot on the UX, like how to enter and exit people from this experience where you're kind of tapping into their primal nature and then like jostling it around. And you have to have a lot of respect for that and what you're doing. And so I'm mainly just hoping that whenever I bring up conversation in this industry and medium, that we can sort of wake up a little bit and not just go along the same rails that can lead to stagnation and problems that I've been seen before. But I say that with absolute respect for what all of you guys are doing, because I think, you know, everything is growing up. It's just that I think we have to also always remember what we're doing here to people. And these reaction videos are super fun, but also we're freaking messing with people. And you guys are responsible, right? But what happens when it's not somebody who gives a shit about their audience? So, man.
That's a good point. I mean, you have a very specific audience here on one of these. It's very important for the youth. So, how do you feel about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Right now is an extremely exciting time for the entertainment industry, and especially the animation industry, where we have a lot of involvement. You know, if you look at the big shift in the last 10 years, it was getting online, moving towards VOD, getting past the 24-hour block space and having unlimited amounts of content to go through, and focusing on getting great content, great storytelling. But today we get to start moving towards even more past just storytelling, but also story guiding, and providing people opportunities in virtual reality and augmented reality. And at Toon Goggles, it's an extremely high priority for us. In the virtual reality side, we are doing a lot of work in 360 environments. So from Internally, we create some of our own content, both live action and animated. On the live content side, we are trying to create some new, unique experiences. Currently, we're doing some work with the GoPro Omni. It's a great device. It has its struggles, but it's giving us an opportunity to provide experiences for children around the world that they wouldn't normally be able to have. I mean, imagine filming, if you had the rights, at Disney Studios or Disneyland, and walking around the studios and seeing things, and then a child in South Africa that would never have a chance of visiting Disney being able to see exactly what's happening there. Experiences like these are things that we're crafting up and building out to supply worldwide. On the 3D animation side, it's a really unique experience because, as a lot of people up here will probably contest, filming live action 360 video is very challenging. There's a lot of things associated with production, directing, everything where you're trying to hide people from the scenes. One of the unique things about animation is that we don't have to deal with that. You know, we already create 3D scenes for animation with the caveat that normally we don't create full 3D scenes. We create 3D scenes as much as necessary to tell the story. But in our own personal content that we're creating, we're taking this to the next level. We're creating content that is fully immersive, fully immersive 3D scenes that have every object built as it should, building multi-storylines in each scene, and making it so that there's a full multi-camera environment in every cartoon scene so that we can create multiple perspectives. So for instance, we could have it so that a user could consume the content from a unique point in space in 360, or we could have the user consume the content from the eyes of the character in the cartoon. And you could watch it one time from the eyes of the character that he's a Yeti, or maybe his companion Polly. Moving on from, one of the big things as a company to mention about 360 is there's two really big different types of 360. There's monoscopic 360 and stereoscopic 360. There's others, but those are the primary use cases we've been looking at. And for our company, we've been focusing on monoscopic 360 for multiple reasons. One being the fact that it requires no additional hardware. So you can use it on any device, and especially devices with gyroscopes allows really fluid motion. And secondly, there's just not enough information about the effects of stereoscopic 360 on children's eyes. So as a company, from an ethical standpoint, while we support the technology, it's not something that we're sending out to our users until there's enough information to verify that it's safe for them. So to handle that, as a company, we built custom players for many, many platforms. So as a company, we're on mobile devices, TVs, tablets, any device that you can find Netflix on, we're on. And so we wanted to make sure, since we were using monoscopic 360, that this would be an experience that would be available for everybody. So we built custom players for iOS, Android, HTML5 for all smart TVs, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, basically anything that you can watch video on, you can now watch our 360 video content on. On the augmented reality side, we're trying to think about which ways can we augment the experience. We really want to focus on turning it from an entertainment experience into an interactive entertainment experience. Things like marker and markerless object recognition. So you can be having a video experience. We have a video recording feature in our applications where kids can create their own content. And as an experience, we can detect scenes throughout the world, throw in our own 3D objects, our own 3D models of characters that we produce so that kids can interact with them. With doing that, we can even gamify, give points to users, make it a more engaging experience so they would use it over and over again and share with their friends. And then we've introduced a couple different unique concepts to help enhance the video industry. One being multi-story interactive video. This is the concept of saying that a video does not have to be the same video every single time. So when you start a video, you could have multiple versions of the video recorded at any given time. And if you think of the old choose your own adventure stories, where you could be walking through a story, and then at some point in the story you ask for interaction from the child, whether it be seamless or paused or whatever you decide it may be, and then all of a sudden the story diverges. And with technologies like HLS and PEG-Dash, where you can segment videos, we're able to seamlessly stitch in transitions between videos. And the second is real-time personalized video. And this is where we're talking about taking video and using OpenGL and rendering engines to supply new content to the video scenes. So if you have a scene where you might have a Coca-Cola can on a table, all of a sudden, if you're in a different country, you could change that to a Nutella bottle. Whatever it may be, you can adapt video to the end user experience and make it more fun for them, more engaging for them. And lastly, one thing that I haven't noted on the slide is in the next couple of weeks we'll be launching with a partnership with Philips Hue an integration where every single video, over 1,000 hours worth of content on our platform, has been color analyzed frame by frame. And so in your home, if you have a Hue light set up, all the lights in a specific room that you have set up will change in color coordination with the video, similar to what Sharknado did in the past, but it's full auto-analyzed for 1,000 hours of content. And that'll be launching in the next couple of weeks. Just another thing to create an augmented experience for children.
That's cool. I think that's cool.
Sounds cool.
Yeah.
So these are all things that we're doing internally as Toon goggles, and then also working with clients with my company, Digital and Media Interactive, to provide these services to other individuals.
That's fantastic.
Wow.
So from that perspective, I guess one question, we heard a couple things, right? We heard there's camera rigs involved, we heard there's some real-time stitching, some that's not, we heard there's fragmentation, distribution, and platforms. What do you guys think is going to be needed to make VR take off mainstream?
I just got my PlayStation VR, and it is a dramatically different experience. And I'll tell you, the headset is not that different from the HTC, but sitting on the couch makes like a huge difference. To have it right there in your living room, to have it convenient, to not have to like start up the big computer rig. And I think that's going to be pretty transformative, is getting it into people's living rooms.
Can I jump in on this for a second? I have an HTC at home, and I found the strangest part of it, and there's also an arcade that opened in northern Ontario, Canada, where my people originate from. It's called Control V, and they have 15 HTC Vive set up all day long, and kids go and do birthday parties there in lieu of Chuck E. Cheese, right? And they spend the whole day playing Job Simulator. They don't shoot stuff, they don't frag stuff, they don't even go around in Alice in Wonderland stuff. They just want to sit at a desk and throw erasers and play grown-up, which is, I think, really, really important. And I think that, and also when my cousin came and visited from Mexico, he's 12 years old, and I said, you can try some VR today. And he did the same thing. He got into Job Simulator, did that all day long. We took him out of it, he went right back to it. So I think, and when I get asked this question a lot, I think that what VR experiences will be for, what people might pay for at the beginning, even on their Gear VRs and so on, are things where, in some way, you're upgrading part of your day. It's not just sort of sitting and watching an entertainment thing, but like if you go to Mars and you can kind of chill on Mars, and then you can look at the rover, and there's an entertainment component to it. There might be a story like, ooh, the alarm is going off, you have to go do something, and you're motivated and call to action. That's great, but once you're there, I think what keeps you there is, oh, I want to look at Mount whatever and turn it around and read all the names and understand something that I didn't before I came into this experience, which is uniquely kind of a VR thing to do. Because you can take your own time with it. It's not like watching Nat Geo where you kind of phase in and out of it. But there's something about this hands-on manipulation. It's not the agency itself. We keep thinking it's like, oh, I get to do stuff. I don't think that's what it is. I think it has something to do with like you and it growing together or somehow evolving something from where you began. You know, it's a change of state kind of a thing. That's my 2 cents on that.
I think it's a great point. I mean, a lot of people talk about VR as just 360 video, right, spherical video, but to that point, that it's taking you somewhere else, it's upgrading you in a different way, and it's keeping you engaged at your pace.
And it can even be a photograph, like just to make sure I'm not confusing that it's room scale VR or that 360 is bad, because a lot of people are kind of harshing on 360 now, like, oh, that's just a stepping stone, it's over, and VR is a stepping stone to AR, none of which I think is true. I mean, a photograph of being inside of a tomb in Egypt will tell you more about that place than you've had ever inferred from any book that you've read. It's like almost instant. Standing in Rikers prison, you know, in a freaking 6x9 solitary confinement chamber, I mean, we saw this on the White House lawn, will teach you more about that space than any other medium we've made today. So it can be a still photograph for all it's worth.
Others?
One thing I'm thinking about here is, you know, VR is amazing, AR is amazing, but for it to take off, it needs mass adoption. And not to compare it too directly to 3D, but 3D didn't have mass adoption because of the need for extraneous hardware, for the need of the difficulty of creating some content. But had those barriers been gone, at least for the early stages of that, it would have taken off a lot more than it did. And one of the unique things about VR and AR, which is great right now, is the fact that there are opportunities to do VR and AR without additional hardware. And it's going to allow mass adoption going in right off the bat. And as more and more people use these non-hardware related experiences, then the people that are more and more interested in it will go for the next level of experience with the additional hardware. But there are also user experiences when you don't want the hardware. Imagine, Pokemon Go being so popular this last year. Imagine now if all your kids were playing Pokemon Go on a headset and being hit by cars. I mean, this would really be, seriously, in some occasions, it's not appropriate.
People are still getting hit by cars now.
Yeah, I know, they are as it is. But, it's just, as an industry, we need to think about how can we get this to as many people as possible, get them interested, and then, keep giving them better and better experiences.
Well, listen, it's about content, right? And there's got to be a lot of content. There's got to be content that people will pay for. What we see a lot is a lot of free content, and we're absolutely against free content in VR because it devalues it. You have to create premium content that people will pay for. If you give them too much free stuff, then they equate VR is free, right? And they don't get it. So for there to be mass adoption, there has to be a business. If you don't charge for content that people don't think it's worth anything, then are they going to spend $800, $500, $300 on a headset? They may not because they don't think it's worth anything. They think it's an arcade thing or something I can try at the local festival or the local theater or the local arcade. It's got to be something that you create high-end content that people will buy, and then you'll have the adoption. If people buy, if there's 44 million PlayStations out there, then that means that there were enough games on the PlayStation platform that people decided to buy the hardware. The same thing in VR.
Alex, the thing is on Steam, people are also getting burned because they're buying, these $4.99 games, and it's all the same crap over and over and over again, right? So they're getting burned, and they're saying, I'm not going to buy this stuff because people are putting out 12-minute experiences that is just a simple mod. So how do you police that?
Well, listen, the marketplace will police itself. I think what you're seeing a lot now actually is a lot of non-VR content being ported to VR. So to us, the key is to build VR with a live action gaming from the ground up. For VR, when you're telling stories, you got to tell stories in VR. We see a lot of games they make a traditional game that's meant for somebody to play on their couch with a TV screen, and they think, oh, we'll just put it into VR. It doesn't work. The audience doesn't want it. They don't care. Oftentimes, because they don't think about VR at the beginning, it'll make people nauseous because the game mechanics and the way they move in VR is going to be different than the way they move sitting on a couch. So it's a matter of making sure the content is premium enough and thought about for VR, so people say, oh, the only way I can consume this content is with a headset.
It has to be worth messing up your hair for. You have to put this thing on. It's uncomfortable, and so the experience has to be that it was worth it.
Exactly.
Yeah. How about Matt? You mentioned the Everest that you're very excited about. How much does production cost change when you do VR now in this setting? I mean, is it just dramatically different, or how do you guys?
Obviously, like any production, it varies on the scale of the content you're doing. But no, it's actually, for 360 video specifically, the game engine VR stuff is completely different. But it's just, you're still having cameras, but to natively produce a 360 video, you just want to make sure you approach it in the right way. So, for example, like somebody said, you have to hide your crew members. I mean, we used to talk about it like it's more like a play. So you really do your rehearsals. You maybe spend a lot more time in lighting and rehearsals and scenery, because you can't just put everything here and then hide your lights this way. I mean, for example, the Devo video, the whole thing we shot, it was 7 takes, but the entire video was 1 take. I'm all about messing with the format, so I think you can cut in 360 video, and I'm a fan of it, but we didn't for that video. And then post-production, it's more of like a VFX workflow. So again, you can of course cut, but typically in these 360 experiences, you're inhabiting the world you're in for longer. So your editing time, your actual editing, cutting is cut down. Listen, I can't wait for auto stitching, but I've spent so much time in, stitching manually that at my core, I just can't believe it. I'm so excited to be proved wrong. But basically, so you swap out the length that it would take to actually cut everything up seamlessly to, instead you're stitching, you're making sure your color correction is right, you're placing the graphics in 360 space. So I find the costs swap out, it's just a different workflow.
Yeah, it's from our experience, it's easier to shoot, but then it's more complicated in post. So as long as you accommodate for that, you're probably going to spend the same from our experience. But in general, you want to shift more of your budget into post to be able to accomplish stitching and any VFX you're doing and everything else. And when you're shooting, obviously there's less coverage if you're doing certain kinds of content. So it's quicker and easier. You don't have all the coverage, and that's essentially the big difference.
I'll tell you something else I learned about running FIVARS. When you run a festival that kind of like can show up anywhere from like a music festival where people are in flip-flops to like a convalescent home to like, during TIFF where you've got international producers coming in and they just left a TIFF screening and they're walking into a VR thing. In the end, if your actors suck, then the whole thing doesn't matter. I mean, I've had experiences that, we actually were the first company that had an official without-a-box submission thing. We talked to Amazon and they kind of worked with us to actually figure out like what their Boolean search would be for VR and catch everything. So we get stuff from Jordan, Iran, China, Russia, like really interesting material. And in the end, intimate, quiet little experiences were just as successful or popular as anything that had anything kind of, razzle-dazzle. Lillian Merrill, who went to Tisch in New York, did a little piece about there's a black security guard and nobody looks at him all day long and he's helping all of these people out with their lunch or finding their way to the bathroom or whatever, and then it turns into a South Korean mother of twins living in New York, and she's an artist and trying to find the time to deal with all of that. And then it goes to a trans girl who's outside of the museum, and all of them connect somehow. And it's a quiet little story, and half the time you're not even sure where it's going. And people absolutely loved it. I mean, it rated up there beside Pearl from Google Story Studio. So it just tells me that, these things can still have resonance, but after you do all the post, after you do all the stitching, your actors have to be good.
The story needs to be good.
The lighting's got to be good.
And by the way, the story should, in our opinion at least, it's got to be in 360. What we see a lot is something shot in 360 where the story all happens in front of you. It's all on one side of the thing. So to us, if everything's going to be here, and I don't need to see anything back here, there's nothing happening. Why am I shooting in 360? Why am I going through all the Michigas and the headache to do that? Let's just keep everything here and just shoot with a red camera and call it a day. Why be in 360? And we see a lot of 360 content where it's really 180.
And don't be afraid to hang your actors from the ceiling.
Don't be afraid to hang your actors. That's right.
So one other interesting perspective I'd like to share here is that 360 video cameras can be used for shooting 2D video, in a sense, where you can create some really unique stories by filming in 360, and then as you render the video, rendering it flat, but then panning the perspective as you're going. So imagine a situation where you had a group of people sitting down at a table and they were talking, and one person says something and all of a sudden the camera pans to another person. You can take a scene that would normally be broken up into different takes and turn it into a single take and really create a much more immersive experience for interviews, for any of these situations where you would normally create a segmented, broken experience.
Yeah, we, with basically, especially back in 2007, because we built our own player, and I know it's basically a curse word, but it was built in Flash, which was basically our demise, the day that Apple announced they weren't supporting Flash on the iPhone. But basically, every 360 video we would create a 2D version. We called it traditional video, and not to keep bringing up Devo, but it was a perfect example. Warner Brothers, the band wanted to do it. They were like, we want the interactive video. And then Warner Brothers was like, well, we need a video for MTV. This is great, this is cool, but like it's going to live on a website somewhere. Who's going to see it?
Almost too risky.
Yeah, and we said, okay, no big deal. We'll deliver you the 2D version and a 360 version. And the 2D version was just basically whip pans all around the 360 video that you could never accomplish. Like there's no way you could do those camera moves. So absolutely, you know, for frames for VFX, I mean, there's all sorts of utility for 360.
You know, one thing is, you know, from a storytelling perspective, as everybody goes back to for VR, Dan, you guys have filmed some of the most immersive ones out there. How do you guys view storytelling as different in VR? And how much more difficult is it?
I mean, we cut, we move the camera, we play with scale, we break a lot of rules, and we get away with murder. So it's like the first year or two, nobody wanted to move the camera, or everybody thought it had to be just like this long, drawn-out shot. And what proved out to be not true. You can do a lot of things. So, you know, I think you just got to keep practicing and seeing what's possible out there. I think the worst thing that can happen is when you have one camera go down, and then the whole shot's gone. That's when it gets really expensive. So, you know, I don't know if there's any new tricks out there right now. We have been playing with a lot of sound. We have been, which is huge. But I think that we tend to focus a lot in the front 180, just because we have found that long-term watching VR can be a little bit, not necessarily painful, but it's not as leisurely as watching a television or a movie show. So I think long-term, you know, I might be scorched here for saying it, but I mean, I kind of feel like most of it long-term is going to be in the front 180 and probably in the front 90 when you think about it. I don't want to watch a movie doing this for an hour and a half.
I'll tell you something though, you know, the thing that I'm personally most excited about in terms of storytelling in VR is it's going to be some kid in Kansas City or Ottawa or wherever in a garage who didn't grow up watching movies the way we all grew up watching movies, who doesn't have any predisposed notion of what linear storytelling is, who's been watching content on a phone and he doesn't value a big theatrical movie any more than a short YouTube video on a phone, that's going to innovate storytelling in 360 in a way that nobody can really conceive of yet, and that innovation is really what's going to turn the corner in VR. That's what's going to make all the difference, where we can really look at storytelling and say, forget about all the rules, everything that we think are rules, and I agree with what you're saying, Dan, but this notion of I don't want to turn my head. I think people do want to turn their heads. I think people do want to look around. I think they want to, if the story is compelling enough around me, I think they want to experience stories they've never experienced before.
Okay, but like in a couple of years, there won't be any head thing, right? Everything will be everything's going to be the interface. This thing and this thing and this thing. It's all going to be a VR type thing. I'm just saying we're not going to recognize it 2 years from now, because I've thought about this, what you guys are both saying, and been on both sides of that argument.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it's going to matter. I mean, because like what you said, some kid in Wichita is going to break it all.
Yeah.
But I still think that we should make the best stuff we can for this period.
Well, that's the thing, is like, why is this story being told in VR? If you could tell it better, like you said, with the red camera in a rectangle, then you should do it that way. There has to be a reason why it's in VR.
And there's two conversations really. There's 360 videos, and then there's real-time render VR. I think they're completely separate discussions. I think you have a completely different sense of presence, what it's really all about. And when you can have a real-time render multiplayer experience with people inside of that space with you, it's the best.
Although it's you who's shooting zombies in a live action.
Could be.
Right? So is it that, or is it the convergence of the two? Is that really where it's going?
I think if I was a betting person, I would say that's the world I want to live in. I want to live in real-time render, holodecks, cordless, big spaces that I can also sit on my couch and control with a handheld.
So, but we gotta be,
I want both.
We gotta be cognizant of the end user though at all times, you know. So yes, there may be times when you are in a perfect situation where you can sit in a perfect environment where you can move around, look around, whatever you want. But as a company that's providing these services to end users, we need to provide them opportunities to make it easy for them to use. And for one example of this is allowing the user to reset the perspective and environment when they want to. So for instance, if you have a video that you have to look forward to see a scene, and then there's some cool stuff going on over here, the user may not want to look this way for 5 minutes. They may want to allow themselves to turn, reset, and then move their head back to a more comfortable position and watch that perspective. It could be from the bottom of a helicopter, or it could be from whatever, but if you have to lay down on the floor, contort yourself upside down, it's only going to work in certain situations.
Well, by the way, to your point, if you played it all with the PlayStation VR, there's a forward-facing camera, and if you turn too far, it'll lose the connection because it's lights right now. So to your point, we're as game developers, we're playing with that, with having to shift the perspective, having to turn yourself. Because in the Vive, for example, in our game, you can turn all the way around. You can go backwards, but in the PlayStation, that doesn't work because you lose all your hands. So you're absolutely right. And playing with perspective and playing with having to lock in a different perspective as your sort of center is a really interesting thing. And I think that's something that we're working to solve every day. But I think as an industry, that's an issue. I think PlayStation will eventually have room scale. That's our guess, but that's not what they're launching with now.
Right.
So it's a really interesting conversation.
Have you guys heard of, how many people have heard of Liquid Cinema, the software?
Yeah.
So now Liquid Cinema is a thing where when you're in 360, whenever you have a point of interest that moves, it'll actually kind of draw it back towards the center, a little bit like a gentle rubber band. So that's on the production side. And then I was going to say about authoring, you guys have heard of Mind Show, right? This toy where you are basically recording your own movements and doing your own mocap, and then you're basically multi-tracking performances for yourself. And yes, and Netflix needs to have a thing where you tap the side and it recenters it so you can lay on your back and watch Netflix on the I can't believe that they don't do that.
That exists. That's on Gear VR. You can do that right now.
Yeah, but it doesn't recenter it. So if you're laying on your back, you still have to like sit up and look forward. It doesn't actually do that.
I think it's, by the way, I
Toon
think
Goggles
guys,
has that. So
Hey,
it's you guys and porn guys are going to figure that one out. So.
True Netflix and chill.
Literally.
One thing I would say, jumping back to the conversation about live action capture, 360 video versus the immersive game engine, is that there's already technologies and providers like 8eye and the other one I can never remember the name, Uncorporeal, who are doing capture of 3D performances. So you can use your sort of regular TV, movie directing and capturing and scripting techniques to capture assets that then you could put into these video game environments. And it's fun.
Audience questions, please.
I had a question for Alex and maybe Keram might want to join in on that. I'm not so sure I agree with you about free content killing VR. Maybe for a developer that needs to get their investment back, but that hypothetical young person who turns VR on its ear over some new way of doing something, their entry point might be purely through free content to become motivated about VR. They may not have a budget, and I've worked with some hackathons and some underprivileged kids and the like. They don't have any budget. They can't even get access to VR, let alone, if they did, have to come up with money to buy various experiences, which, mind you, I agree with you, can be much better if more money gets spent on them. And the idea of curation, so in the process of you deciding how much the price is or whether you're going to give something away as a loss leader for free, you have an opportunity to curate other content, perhaps with other developers, and come up with curatorial packages that may boost the other projects, boost your product as well. Everybody wins in a scenario like that, and they split the $30 proportionally somehow, and all the votes are listed. Keram, you've been involved in curation, so that's an active, multi-person participatory exercise where everyone gets to share and weigh their thoughts. You've been lucky enough to participate in that. Some of the developers are very focused. They don't want to look outside of their own box. They just want to finish what they're doing. But how would you try to translate those curatorial instinct that you might have to be open-minded about other kinds of content and lump it together and at least get someone to look at a particular product or project because it's grouped with other projects that are also motivating.
Let me summarize real quick for the streaming folks. So essentially, the core question is really, is free content really the enemy, or is it an opportunity for folks that would want to use it as an entry point, or using curation as a responsibility as an entry point? So, sorry, please.
So what? Sorry, you want to?
No, you go first.
So just on the free side of things, let's be clear about it. There's no such thing as free, right? So if you look at the YouTube, it's ad supported. Right now, there's not enough headsets in place in critical mass to justify a true an AVOD or an ad-supported model. So from a monetization standpoint, you can't get enough traction, in my opinion, in the business with free content to really to grow the industry. You need to start premium, and then eventually, at the same time, all the guys are going to create free content, whether it's live action or gaming. The problem, what you see is all the headset guys, to try to get people to buy headsets, are encouraging a lot of the free content. They're trying to keep the prices really low because they think that it'll get people to buy headsets. Our contention is the opposite. Our contention is the things that are going to make people buy the headsets is a premium experience. If you're going to charge $20, $30 for a headset, or if it's a whatever, a Gear VR or a cardboard or Daydream, whatever it is these days, that's fine. But you're not going to sell an $800 VOD. You're not going to sell an $800 when you get the touch controller in Oculus with content that people don't value and don't say, I'm not going to spend an $800 so I can get some free content that's not premium. You can't. There's no way that us as a developer can justify the amount of money that we're investing for a 10-hour AAA game when we can't monetize. And if we don't have a marketplace and a system that's there to monetize that, then there's no point in us making an investment. And if guys like us don't make the investment in the content, whether it's gaming or live action, then there's no industry. The free content is great and it'll be there, but it's not really free because at some point all the advertisers are going to see a critical mass in audience and in users to justify saying, all right, we'll support this content, and then all the guys, for example, all the guys on YouTube are making money. If you're a PewDiePie, you make a lot of money. It's all free content, but it's not really free because he's got brands coming in, paying for things. He's got other people coming in. He's got enough audience views to pay for things. Right now, there's no critical mass of audience. So you're right to the extent that free will be the big long tail when you look at the volume of content. But in the initial stages of VR, we need the premium transactional business model to drive the business to make sure people buy the headsets. That's the key.
I just want to jump in a second. I don't think the enemy is free content, it's bad content. And the problem is that a lot of the free content right now is really bad. If there was amazing content that was, like you said, a premium experience, I don't think the problem is whether you pay for it or not in terms of the user's perspective. They want to have a premium experience whether they pay for it or not on the headset. And I do think the PewDiePies will come up eventually, but they're just not there yet.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think part of this is that there needs to be a really big business model perspective gone into every project. You can have the content producers that create great content, you can have the tech guys that create the hardware and the technologies to supply the content, but you need to be able to have the business side behind it to monetize it any way you can. Unless you're a nonprofit organization, your job as a business is to ensure that you're profitable and making money off all the content you're creating. And that doesn't mean just advertising AVOD, it doesn't mean just subscription SVOD. It could mean sponsorships, it can mean selling merchandise. A lot of people don't even think about selling merchandise because they think it's a whole different company. But in a sense, if you really want to create a real 360 company, you need to think from every opportunity that you can monetize something, and if it means the content can be free to the end user, then that's amazing. Yeah. And you can still create amazing content by getting the money elsewhere.
So by the way, we said to that, we spend a lot of our time at the studios, right? When so Paranormal Activity, it's a Paramount IP. We license it from them. We work very closely with Paramount. Work very closely with most of the studios. To get the studios in the game, to get the studios to really to say, all right, we believe this IP can live in this marketplace. It's got to be premium. There's got to be money in it for them, for everybody. Otherwise, you're not going to get the true high-end content. It's going to live in this land of branded content or the UGC equivalent content, and it's never going to really get any traction. And that's the key. If you want to get the studios involved, you want to get the real money, because the studios have the money, right? The studios will make, if the studios make transactional VR content today, if there was a business model really there where they could see the money they see from television or theatrical or whatever. So that's part of it as well.
All right.
Sorry, that was a long answer to a short question.
I don't know. I mean, so I've been the editor-in-chief of Indie Game Reviewer for 10 years, and I know about that whole model of like packaging a bunch of stuff together, and you know, usually the best stuff sells the cheaper, less good stuff. But I'm not. I don't know. I don't have the same concerns as these guys do, but I agree that, I mean, it's a freaking gigantic ecosystem, first of all. Like, it's not like apples and oranges saying that, you know, giving kids the opportunity to make stuff is the same as AAA companies who are making super duper premium content. And for that reason, like, you go on YouTube or you go buy an Xbox One and you pay $65 for a DVD. It's two different things. And PewDiePie is the killer app, right? PewDiePie is like free, and he was just there curating for everybody else and saying, I really like the shittiest, worst games that are out there, and now he's the biggest thing that ever happened on YouTube and is making millions and millions of dollars. So for me, it's a little scary to say, well, we should use these traditional models, again, with all respect to Alex, because I think that stuff is important, and we need those guys to be really pushing the technology and pushing the people that are at the top of their game to see what it can be. But also, the other side is extremely important to nurture and allow that to happen, to give people the opportunity to be distributed, to be discovered, to be, you know, and those guys that are doing that on the street level have to understand what spreadability is or whatever else, or they should just follow their hearts. I mean, because something like FIVARS does not really discriminate between, we have Pearl, which is a big Google story, we have Help, which is a gigantic production, and then we have stuff that somebody went to Berlin and shot on a depth kit, like whatever, in 3 weeks, and they're standing side by side, and they have equally powerful results. So we have to do all of that to learn and learn and learn, and I think that those people should be supported as much as possible. Also, I've gone to Viridian and Little Star and all of those guys and said, you know, what's really going to help you is curation, right? Because if I have the same glut of stuff that YouTube has when I go to your portal, then what's the point of you? So how does the curation work? And like, I mean, HBO is a highly curated channel, right? And they make their own stuff, and people are willing to pay like $17, $18 a month for that stuff, just for Game of Thrones. So I think that there is a model in all of that.
And it's an open market. So that's probably the best thing that is out here as far as like this hardware goes. 10 years ago, trying to get a mobile application on a J2ME phone way back when was hard as hell, and I couldn't get access to it, and it was painful. But the fact that nowadays the hardware manufacturers have kind of lost control of that a little bit, but there are ways to get your content on pretty much any device that is available out there. That's really the good thing that has happened in the space.
Yeah, I mean, back in the Social Animal days, I mean, I think we probably created about 40 or so very premium 360 video experiences, literally flying from the bottom of a helicopter through the Swiss Alps. We did a virtual tour of Sydney all the way through Australia. I mean, we've shot in Anguilla, Israel, Australia, Switzerland, everywhere. And I guess it was middle of last year, and that was, you know, our camera, it was a $500,000 camera system. It was a very premium experience. And to be honest, we lived in a vacuum. The distribution wasn't there. And basically last year, for Legends of Gaming, the show I was talking about earlier, you know, we shot it on GoPros, which sort of was like a stab to the heart to me. But the gamers that were in the video had a combined audience of like over 40 million fans. And as I was shooting it, I was like, wow, this by far is easily going to be the most watched 360 video experience I ever have produced. And I've been doing this for years. So, you know, the power of those digital stars today is massive. But obviously it's got to be good.
So, listen, at the end of the day,